Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we will be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, and other role players. Tune in every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for your latest episodes. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome to About the Winelands. Today I'm speaking to possibly the most famous winemaker in South Africa, Charles Back. Pleased to meet you, Charles, and thank you for joining us on About the Winelands.
Hi, my pleasure. Nice chatting to all of you.
It's our pleasure having you here. Can you maybe tell us, you've got such a story, so I'd love to hear, a bit of history of how you personally got involved in the wine industry, and also, the history of Fairview and your family history. It'd be great for our listeners to hear.
Okay, it's quite a long history, obviously stretching back to about 1693, when Fairview was first granted to the first freeburger or settler in the area. Okay, as far as my family is concerned, is more recent than that. My late grandfather came from Lithuania about 1902 and started as a butcher boy in Cape Town, delivering meat by bicycle in Cape Town, and then opened his first butchery in Paarl a couple of years later. And whilst at the butchery in Paarl, near Paarl Station, he met a lot of the local farmers and became intensely interested in viticulture and farming and agriculture in general. And bought his first farm in 1916, and that is still in family hands. It belongs to my cousin Michael, that's Backsburg. And unfortunately for him, he had two sons that both wanted to go into the wine business, and he bought Fairview in 1937. So my grandfather started on Fairview in 37, and followed by my father, and now myself, so third generation.
Wow, that's amazing. And obviously, growing up on a wine farm, you were always interested. Were you always interested in becoming a winemaker?
Well, I don't think I can do anything else. So much so that I think there's a photograph of me on an old Fortune tractor, and the only way I would eat my lunch if they served it to me on a tractor. So I sat outside in the tractor and had my lunch there. So I've always been intensely interested, and ever since I was had any intelligence, which I don't have a lot of. The only thing I really wanted to do was to farm and to make wine. So there's no option in my life other than what I do.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing that your grandfather had actually bought a wine, started becoming interesting in viticulture and interested in a wine farm. Otherwise, you would have ended up as a butcher.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't been very successful. I lost the thumb in winemaking, so imagine what I would have done in butchering.
Oh my!
It's quite interesting. My granddad, I could never understand why he was interested in that, and I went back to Lithuania a couple of years ago to go and have a look where the little town where he came from, and my great grandfather was a flour miller, and he
Wow.
built this big mill that was water driven, that went right across a river, and had a big water wheel and a culvert where it diverted the water. And he bought up all the wheat in the area and converted into flour and sold it. And then I realized that that is actually what I do. I actually just add value to agricultural products. So if you give me milk, I'll turn it into cheese. You give me grapes, I'll turn it into wine. Flour, I'll turn it into bread. So nothing has really changed. I still do exactly what my great grandfather did.
That's amazing. So, and out of interest, why did you decide to move to South Africa? Because I don't think there's many Lithuanians that actually, came here.
No, it's because we're a Jewish family, and most of the Jewish people in South Africa originated in Lithuania. I think at the height of the size of the community, there's about 100,000 Jewish people that originally came from Lithuania. And they left Lithuania because of persecution by the then Cossacks, the
Wow.
Tsars, So they left Lithuania for economical reasons and persecution. Yeah.
You just taught me some South African history that I didn't know. It's shame on me for that.
It's quite interesting, and I'm a dying species because I'm one of the last remaining Boere in South Africa. There are not many of us left. We should actually be a protected species at the moment.
Well, you've certainly made an impact with Fairview. So, can you tell us a little bit when I mean your farm are open for guests? So when people come there, what can they experience at the farm?
Look, I've tried to very much keep the farm atmosphere and the family feel about it. And my late mother worked in the tasting room, and her big thing was customer service. We always believed that we're in service of our customers and try and give them the best possible experience and give them the best possible products at the best possible price. And I've just stuck to those basic principles. So what you can expect if you arrive at Fairview is a warm family welcome, and all our staff are one big family, and we have the certain values that we all stick to. It's customer service, integrity, and authenticity, and those are the things that I stick to. So that's what you'll experience when you arrive at Fairview.
It's amazing. I mean, kids love it there, and especially tell us a little bit about the goat tower and where that came from.
We started farming, or my late father started farming with goats in the 1980s. I thought it was a mad idea, to be honest with you, in the beginning. And I remember when the first load of goats arrived at 4 o'clock in the morning on a big truck, and I couldn't believe it. And I think the biggest argument my dad and I ever had was about the goats. And because I really was just more focused on wine and wanted the wine business to do well. And then he went to go and spend money, which was in very short supply and still is, on goats. And I thought that was a ludicrous idea. But anyway, he got his way, and we started making cheese. And it was terrible in the beginning. We struggled, and we made the most disgusting cheeses known to man. I mean, you can't believe what the stuff looked like.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, we built a nuclear power plant in South Africa. The French came out at Coburg and built this big power plant. And there were lots of French technologists on site, and they discovered Fairview cheese. And they used to arrive here in the hordes buying up goat's cheese, and that's the way they liked it. The more smelly and stinky it was, the more they enjoyed it. And then at the same time, the health craze in South Africa, and we became aware of cholesterol and saturated fats, and goat milk is far healthier than cow milk when it comes to those components. And all of a sudden, there was such a surge on goat cheese products, and our poor goats couldn't keep up. And we tried our best. I put music in the milking parlor, changed the bedding, changed the food, and they just couldn't keep up with the demand in goat milk. So we built a goat tower, and as an incentive for the goat that produces the most milk in the week, they get a free weekend in the goat tower. And that's how the goat tower came to be at Fairview. So they all incentivized goats running up and down the tower.
That is amazing.
But don't believe that story, okay? But anyway, that's how the goat tower. That's how the goat tower got into being, and it became, I think, one of the most photographed things. And you've got Table Mountain and a couple of other things, and the goat tower is right up there. It's become,
well, also the fact that you have it on a live webcam is also great. You know, that helps.
Oh, you've seen that. The goats don't actually like that. The one goat escaped out of the tower because he hates being watched the whole time, and he's walking around the garden at the moment.
Charles, but you know what I like, what I love about this is the stories that you have to tell. You know, it's just absolutely amazing. And I was thinking about this. You were saying that you're one of the last Boere in South Africa and stuff like that. It's almost a shame that our winelands have such a rich history, and you know, I think a lot of the stories aren't really, you know, there's no real library of those stories, and I think it would be actually a nice project to save some of them. Do you have any ideas on that? I mean, it's completely. I just came in something that came to mind.
Yeah, I'm very interested in wine history in South Africa, and even history of my area. And I was very fortunate when I was a very young kid, and that's about a long time ago, about 60 years ago. we used to have a retired gardener, Paarl. I actually named a wine after him. He was sort of a descendant of a Malay slave, a very handsome, good-looking old man, and I spent a lot of my childhood days sitting in the vegetable garden with him. And he passed on when he was about, I'd say, in his late 90s, close to 99 or 98. And he used to come every day, and he used to come sit there. My mother used to give him a nice sandwich and coffee in the morning, and they used to have a chat in the morning sun. And I used to sit, and I had the privilege of listening to his stories that then must have dated back, say, 70 years, and that's 60 years ago. So I've got a real insight into the area, the people, and the history of this area. And I agree with you, there's so much of this information that's actually it's lost today, and we must try and do something about capturing a lot of that. And there's such interesting stories, and I think there's a book to be written here for sure.
I'm pretty sure about that. So it's some project that I'm really interested in in future. So tell us I mean, I'd love to hear more about your wines, and also, I mean, you're such an interesting person, and also, you know, you've won so many awards and stuff for your wines. Tell us a little bit about your wines, and also, more importantly, your winemaking philosophy, and how did you become so good at what you do?
No, smoke and mirrors. I'm the weakest weakest link in a very strong chain. I've got amazing people around me, and it's a collective. I think what I did do differently, if anything, I worked on the premise what varieties are more suited to our climate than what we had. So when most people mostly had Cabernet, Merlot, and Sauvignon Blanc, which were the best part, a great variety, but not always suited to Cape conditions. I started looking at the more Mediterranean, Iberian styles, and looked for grapes that are more suited to slightly warmer conditions, and especially drought-resistant varieties. And that's why I planted a lot of the Grenache, Mourvèdre, Carignan, Shiraz, stuff like that. So I think I started with different raw material and I had enough of it. And I also then looked at different areas and branched out in Pekingese Cliff and Darling and Swartland. And so I just had the opportunity to have a bigger portfolio of different varieties and different locations. And I think that's what's made Fairview's wines engaging over the last couple of years.
Oh, that's so interesting. Now, you know, overseas, if you go into any wine, basically any supermarket, you'll find Goats de Rome, which seems to be, you know, your most successful brand. I would guess, just from observing what traveling myself.
Look, Goats, I have a very good friend in the UK, and many years ago I spoke to him about what I think about 20 years ago. And I told him that I think that's a type of style of wine that will suit South African conditions the best from a production perspective, as well as a consistency of quality over different vintages. And then he said, well, you're a goat farmer. Why don't you just call it Goats de Rome? And I said, no, that's ridiculous, because never in my life before have I passed off something that's not. And that was a bit cheeky, I thought, at that stage. And I sat on the idea for about 2 years, and then I thought, you know what? If there's one way to break down the barriers about exporting South African wine, this could be it. And then I bottled the first Goats de Rome and became an overnight success, mainly due to the French opposition, I must hasten to add, because for some reason they weren't very happy about it.
I love this story. I mean, I can hear it from the person that actually started this, because I've heard some of the backstories and of the rumors of your fight with the French. Would you?
Yeah,
I love this from a marketing perspective, right?
Well, but my story is, and it's not a story, it's actually a fact. The goats escaped out of the goat tower one day and roamed through the vineyards, and I noticed they were eating Shiraz and then Carignan, Grenache, but they left out the Cab and the Merlot and Pinotage. So I sent somebody with a clipboard, the laboratory assistant with a clipboard, and she took notes of what the goats ate, roughly in the percentage that they were consuming them in. And then we made up the blend according to the goats' preferences, and that's where Goats de Rome came from. The French didn't buy that story for some other reason. and they thought I copied Côte d'Ivoire, okay? And then they sued me, and then I thought the best way, I can't fight the French government. That's going to be a battle that I can't win. So I thought, well, let's take them on in a different way. And we arranged, I think, in political history, the first protest march where a white South African farmer with all his staff had a protest up to the French consulate in Cape Town. And I handed over a Camembert Brie, and I handed over a magnet bottle of goat's around. And in true French tradition, you know, when French farmers are upset, they normally go to the Champs-Elysees in Paris and dump a load of manure. So I thought, be a little bit more civilized down here. So I vacuum packed some boktrolletjies, and I took it to the ambassador for the pot plants in front of the embassy. So, and then for some strange reason, CNN was out there as well. I don't know who told them about it. And this thing hit global news all over the world. And that was the start of Goat's Dome as a brand. It was amazing. Unfortunately, the French have subsequently capitulated and don't take me on anymore. Otherwise, this publicity would continue rolling on. So they stopped, and Goat's Dome has become a brand which pops up all over the world. Is, I think, today the #1 selling South African wine in Norway. So it's all over the show.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it everywhere. So, here's another question: is I mean, obviously there were no cell phones at that time, which is a pity. But do you have any footage of this protest besides what CNN took?
I think I've got, it was on news, so one would go and find in archives. You know, my staff were amazing. They composed struggle songs, and they danced, and they had a struggle. You won't get our goat or something like that. I can't remember. It was really amazing thing, and was a great team building exercise as well. I know there would be camera footage of it. I don't know about video. I will try and see if I've got it in the archives.
I definitely need to come and talk to you about that, because you know that story could be told even more. I think I love it. So Charles, I mean, your wines are sold all over the world, I assume, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about your export business?
Well, we export to, I think, most continents and countries. That anywhere I can find a potential wine buyer, I would sell wine to. Obviously, the England and America and Canada and Scandinavia were the more important ones. But I think that our future is going to possibly be in Africa, and we are really gearing up to servicing Africa as a continent. Obviously, with this COVID impasse, it slowed down a whole lot of our plans that we had. But I think in the future, we'll see Africa emerging as a big market for South African wine.
I've heard from other producers that they also find there's a little bit of a premium price in Africa for South African wines.
Yeah, I think we're proudly African, and I do believe when tourism comes back, Africa is going to be one of the more sought after destinations, because we've got a hell of a lot to offer the tourists. So I do believe that focus should be given to our continent and at home. I mean, Johannesburg is still the biggest market for South African wine, and we still got potential market in South Africa that hasn't been exploited properly yet.
Well, if we just convert a small percentage of our beer drinkers to wine drinkers, we might.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've heard that since I've been in the wine business. That's been 42 years, and it hasn't happened yet. Hopefully, it does happen in my lifetime.
well, we'll see. So, you have a wine club at Fairview. How does that work?
You know that the wine club is actually just what I call retaining connectivity. We have a vast number of visitors fortunate to come and visit Fairview every year, and we give an incentive to the purchase of wine if you join the wine club. And the reason why I do it is that I want to retain the connectivity, and I make a lot of wines that are only sold on the property or online. And I enjoy doing that because the small batches that we've got a range called Blomkool, which is the original name of Fairview. It used to be called Bloemkoolsfontein. And wow. we actually call the range of wine Blomkool, and we make it from recycled paper, the label, and in the label is embedded cauliflower seeds for recycling. And so it's a whole nice story, telling the story of the history of Fairview. but that gives the winemakers complete freedom to go and do whatever they want to do. So you would have the most obscure varieties made in the most obscure way, natural wine on the skins, different varieties blend. So I allowed that to happen, and that we only sell on the farm, and that became immensely popular. And we also only sell that online. And then in addition to that, I've got a range called Broken Barrel, which is a batch system where we make, every vintage we make one wine that is unique to that vintage. And after the vintage, after the wine's bottled, we design a label that depicts the whole story that we're trying to tell in the product. And we break the mold or break the barrel, and we never do it again. And that's become immensely popular. It's our #1 selling wine today, actually.
Wow.
And that's driven for online, because we want our consumers to engage, because we've got so many stories to tell. So either they must come and visit us and failing, which if they can't, which we understand, then they can connect with us via internet and our wine club. And in fact, we're launching I don't know when this podcast is going live. Tonight, we're launching a program where if you buy wine now, during the lockdown, we'll give you 1% discount for every day that you have to wait till the lockdown is lifted. So that's gambling on the, and that's going live this evening, hopefully. And that's also a very exciting promotion.
So Charles, I'll definitely promote that. The podcast will only go live in about a week, but actually I'll put up something about that specific because I love it. So I'll
because
so
in a week's time.
Yeah,
in a week's time, you'd have 7% discount already. Yeah.
How long do I have to wait before I get the wine for free? How many days?
Yeah, but there's a cap on that.
Oh, you've got an escape clause in it.
I'll tell you how the escape clause works. My late father had held South Africa's first wine auction in 1974, which is now 46 years ago. So we're going to give you up to 46 days. That's 46% discount.
Oh, that's
hopefully for my sake, the lockdown is lifted a bit quicker. But just to protect the consumers, I've put a minimum of 2 weeks. So we think I think you'll have 15% discount guaranteed. I stand corrected. I've just been corrected. The moment of madness, I've given a guaranteed 20% discount. Excellent.
Well, now that you're talking about this, I mean, marketing and it must be in your family's blood, right? And it seems like you're not just an excellent winemaker, but also, I mean, everything you're doing seems to be very much marketing oriented. I love the fact that you do this stuff on the 1st of April. I think last year you had the cows walking on the treadmill, and this year you're doing the hand sanitizer. Do you have any other interesting April Fool stories that you can tell us, or any other marketing stories? I love these.
No, but marketing for me is not about, it's just telling the truth in a humorous way. That's my style, or coming up with an engaging story that has some subliminal message in it. My marketing is not really, one can't categorize it as true marketing. I've done a couple of things with I think the interesting one I did once. April Fool, I've done so many. I must actually do a little booklet of the April Fool things I've done.
That'd be great.
One was I've got a little goat. I've got a little game camp I used to have at Fairview. There's some springbok roaming around it. And one day I said that the springbok ram escaped, and he met these beautiful little goats down there at the goat pen. And they obviously got together and had a bit of fun. And a couple of months later, the goats gave birth to spring goats. And the problem with the spring goats was herding them, getting them into the milking part. They were very skittish, but amazingly, the milk was much lower in cholesterol and much healthier. And, you know, I've got calls from all over, I think from Tanzania, I got an inquiry, and Kenya, for people wanting to purchase spring goats. Okay, so that was quite funny. And then I did one. I went to Google Viagra, and I got the chemical compound in Viagra, and I said we've identified it in goat horn. And then I had a goat standing there, and I photoshopped its one horn. I blackened the horn out, and I had a gentleman standing with the overall and the face mask on with a tiny chainsaw. So I said we're harvesting the goat horns, and then we're powdering it. and we found out that it's got the same properties as Viagra, and we just got an award from the World Wildlife Organization for saving the rhino. And you can't believe how many people phone me for that stuff as well. As with the hand sanitizer, I've got people calling us for the hand sanitizer. So we really have fun. We really have fun with the April Fools, and it's a way of engaging our customers and actually lightening up. This year was to lightening up a bit of gloomy times, to put a bit of humor into it.
Well, it seems to me that part of your winning recipe is, you know, enjoying your business and having fun, which I always said, if you're not enjoying your work, why are you working?
Exactly. No, it's a privilege to be able to get up every day and really live your dream, and what I've been doing for 42 years, and hopefully I'll be able to do it for a couple of years more.
I'm sure. Now back to, you know, something more serious. The coronavirus has changed, you know, everything we do, and everyone has to basically rethink their business models. What are your thoughts, and do you have any ideas or anything new in mind?
Well, I think one must put, as terrible and as scary and as horrific this is, and my heart goes out to all those people that have families that have lost lives during this period of time. But, you know, the world has an amazing ability to overcome lots of things. I mean, in our recent history, we overcame the Second World War. If you take what happened there, and the world recovered quite quickly after that. So humanity is a resilient force. And I do believe things, as much as we in doom and gloom now, things will change. The challenge is how long it's going to take, and obviously the price we're paying for this impasse on humanitarian and financial front. I think one mustn't. I think the main things that we're going to be focusing on more and more and entrenching those values is, I think, transparency. I think that's one in business. Authenticity, I think that's very, very important. And integrity. And I think if you take those three factors and just drill down as hard as you possibly can into them and make sure your business reflects that, you're going to find resonance with people from all walks of life moving forward. So what does that equate to in real terms? If you come to the goat shed at Fairview in the future, we got space, so we can utilize the space. People can sit far apart, that's fine. And your products that you'll have on your plate will be grown by us and reared on the farm and be treated in the proper way. And that's the kind of products that I'm interested in doing, from wine, cheese, whatever. That's what I'm wanting to do. And I believe that's what's going to succeed in the future. People want to understand what goes into a product more so now than ever before.
I think that's right, and also like your philosophy. I mean, I do agree with you. The world has overcome, you know, 2 world wars and many recessions and depressions, and people are not really going to change. And I personally think that, you know, tourism might take a hit now a bit, but at some stage it's going to explode again, because people are people and people want to travel.
Yeah.
And
I just think what I'm concerned about, the more vulnerable people, especially in South African society, we must. I think they're going to suffer the brunt of this, unfortunately, and they're the ones that least can afford to. So there has to be programs in place to make sure there's a safety net for all South Africans.
I do agree with you with that. And I mean, I also saw that you guys are very much into all kinds of social responsibility projects and sustainability and stuff like that on your, you know, on your farm and on your products. Is there anything you want to say specifically about that?
Yeah. You know, it's things that I don't necessarily want to talk about on this platform, but it was great to see. I opened our kitchen at the goat shed, and during this time we've been able to run it as a soup kitchen. And I don't know how many thousand meals we've served already, but we really try our best on that front. And it's very easy to do it. It sounds like it's a big commitment. It's actually so simple, because we have so much bones coming out of our butchery after, and we can boil them up and make a nice broth, and then using beans as a nice form of protein, and potatoes that people donate to us. And then you can make a wholesome, hearty meal for somebody. So it's easy things to do. So that's easy. But the more difficult things are that Fairview, all my vineyards I own. We're different to most other wineries where we own most of our own vineyards rather than buying grapes. and all the grapes are produced are fair trade accredited, which is quite a difficult standard to get to. And that just guarantees the consumer that he or she will know that everything that we've done has been socially correct and done in the correct fashion, right throughout labor management, everything, human resources, the whole lot. So I think that's important. The second thing that I think is equally important is looking after environment. And we're just in throes of converting our whole spicewood wine farm, in not the destination, the farm in the Swartland to organic. I think our first organic wines will come out next year. So we in year 2 or year 3 of the third year of conversion. And then we also embarked upon a very interesting project of natural winemaking at Spicewood, where we imported these clay pots called queveries from Georgia, former part of Russia, where we make natural wines in. And we launched our first products, I think last vintage was under the label Spicewood Obscura. And we imported 10 clay pots last year, another 10. So you've got about 20 pots, roughly making up 20,000 liters of natural winemaking that we'll be doing yearly now from organically grown grapes. And I think very much that's a way in the future we will most probably convert Fairview this after we finish Spice It, and I think that's the way to go.
Oh, that's awesome. Just wow. This is, I mean, you're busy with so many things, but my question for you now is, what is the most important thing that you've learned from your wine journey?
Don't underestimate your consumer. I think that's number one. Respect your consumer, and value. And for me, I always look at it. If you go travel overseas, which is not going to happen in our area again, if you go and sell wine, you've got your couple of samples of wine in your suitcase, and you're going, flying, getting into cabs, getting into Ubers, driving, getting to a restaurant to make an appointment with a sommelier. He doesn't show up. Another person shows up. You look at all the trouble attached to doing that and the cost. And then you look at, I sit at Fairview and I see all these thousands of visitors taking the trouble to come and visit us. And the number one thing is you must respect them, because I'm grateful that they're taking the trouble to visit your estate. I think that's a very important lesson. That is such important business advice. I think, yeah, anyone listening to this should take that to heart. So Charles, my final question for you is to give us your very own wine quote or your favorite wine quote. Oh dear, that's very difficult. I don't expect that one, but I can tell you very much in my life. I would say a day without wine is like a day without sunshine. How's that? I love that one. It's been a pleasure talking to you. If people want to get hold of you guys and want to come, how do they get hold of you? I don't know how to get on it. You can. I think the best is go to Fairview website. We're on there. Anybody can contact me personally through the website at info@Fairview. If people want to get hold of me, it's very easy. Just phone Fairview. It's 021-863-2450. I'm available anytime to any customer, any query, any help I can do. I'm around. Sure. I'm on the farm. I haven't changed my lifestyle. I've been under lockdown for years. It doesn't change. I'm always here. So Charles, that's amazing how accessible you are, right? And I remember back in when I was at university in the 80s, we did a study on Nordstrom, the department store in America, the one that I think it started in Chicago. And the guy that ran it, Bruce Nordstrom, was always available on his phone. Yeah. And I think, that's lost. So many business people have lost the fact, most businesses, if you try to get a hold of the owner, I mean, it's almost impossible. And here you are saying that, and comes back to what you're saying, your respect for the consumer. So I really appreciate that. And the time that you've spent with talking to us, it's great. Thank you. My pleasure. And good luck to all your visitors. Stay strong. Things will come right.
Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description.